Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with our today's session, we have an announcement. BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS is conducting a free workshop on how to prepare for preliminary examination for the next 100 days. How do you register? Follow the link given in the description box, give the necessary information, and you would be able to attend this workshop, which will be conducted by Mukesh Jha sir. Let's get started and look into the first question. Consider the following statements with respect to temples of Khajuraho. Khajuraho group of temples are linked to two religions, Hinduism and Buddhism. The temples of Khajuraho are a magnificent example of the Nagara style of temples. It was built by the Chandela rulers. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the Khajuraho temples. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first option, the Khajuraho group of temples are linked to two religions. Yes, they are linked to two religions. One happens to be Hinduism, the other happens to be Jainism and not Buddhism. Since it is speaking about Buddhism, this is not right, but it has to be Jainism. So the first option is wrong. When we look into the second option, the temples of Khajuraho are a magnificent example of Nagara style of temples. This is a right statement. We know for the fact when it comes to the temple architecture, there are three different modes of architectural styles. What are those? One is the Dravida style, the second is the Nagara style, the third is what is called as the Vesara style. The Nagara style is one of the prominent styles of temple architecture which is prominently found in the northern part of India. The Dravidian style is found in the southern part of India. Now, as part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section what are the major differences between the Nagara style as well as the Dravida style. Please put them on the comment section. So the second statement is right. When you look into the third statement, it was built by the Chandela rulers. Yes, this statement is also right as well. The Chandela Empire ruled in the central part of India from the 10th to the 14th century. Chandelas were known for their liking towards the art and architecture, and they have built number of temples as well. When it comes to the Khajuraho temple, the first mention of Khajuraho and its temple is in the accounts of Abu Rehan al-Baruni as well as Ibn Battuta. Also remember, they are built upon the granite foundations. These temples are made using the sandstone, and it is currently being managed by the Archaeological Survey of India. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements with respect to exercise Cobra Warrior are correct? They are series of international Air Force exercises between the Indian Air Force and the United States Air Force. The exercise showcases efforts and commitment of the two nations to a free and open Indo-Pacific region. Which of the statements are correct with reference to exercise Cobra Warrior? The answer to this is none. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to exercise Cobra Warrior. So when it comes to the Cobra Warrior, let us try and understand what are these options. The first option says there are a series of international Air Force exercise between the Indian Air Force and the United States Air Force. This is a wrong statement. Why? This happens to be an exercise which happens to be the largest joint military exercises which are conducted by the Royal Air Force in the United Kingdom, which is why the first option is wrong. What is the objective of this particular exercise? Basically, this is meant for training the pilots and also helping them in executing complex airborne operations. This is not to do with India and United States of America. This is not to do with Indo-Pacific region. This is run by the Royal Air Force in United Kingdom, where they want to ensure that there are these pilots who would be able to execute complex airborne missions. So what would happen? Sharing best practices among all these air forces who are participants to this particular drill, and also deepening the bonds of friendship is the ultimate agenda of this particular exercise. So the second statement is also wrong. Since both the statements 1 and 2 are wrong, the answer to this would be none. Now let's look into the next practice question. Golan Heights, often seen in news, is related to affairs surrounding which amongst the following regions? Scandinavia, Middle East, Baltic region, Western Africa. The answer to this is Middle East. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the Golan Heights. Let us try and understand what is this conflict or issue surrounding the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights issue refers to the border region that was captured by Israel during the Six-Day War of the 1967. So this particular Golan Heights was before part of Syria, but it was captured by Israel during the period of Six-Day War of 1967. So the first time when Israel occupied the Golan Heights was during 1967. Then something else was happening in the year 1973. What happens? There was a Middle East war. During this period, Syria tried to retake the Golan Heights during the 1973. They were able to inflict large scale losses on Israel as well, but they were not able to capture Golan Heights back in 1973. So what do both the countries do? Both the countries come together. They signed an armistice treaty in 1974. They also placed a UN observer force back in the year 1974. So this region that you are looking at in this image is basically the area of separation where they entered into armistice treaty, and ultimately there was ceasefire that was prevalent in 1974. Israel unilaterally also annexed Golan Heights back in the year 1981. This was not recognized internationally, but back in the year 2019 we had United States of America under Trump administration who unilaterally accepted this particular Golan Heights as part of Israel. It is not internationally recognized, but then you had United States of America under Trump administration which had approved to this particular notion. What is the importance of this particular region? What is the strategic importance? Golan Heights, as the very name denotes, is at a very higher altitude. As a result, whatever is happening in Syria, Israel would be able to monitor it. They would be able to monitor the Syrian movements as well, and this particular place also acts as a natural buffer against any military actions that can be initiated by Syria against Israel. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to International Space Station, which of the following statements are correct? The ISS was launched in 1998 as part of joint efforts by US, Russia, China, Canada and Europe. It is the largest artificial object in space and the largest satellite in low Earth orbit. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why? That is because yes, the ISS was launched in 1998 as part of the joint efforts, but it did not include China, but instead it had Japan in this particular operation. So the first statement is wrong, which is why the answer to this would be 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a mention of the International Space Station. When did this idea originate? The idea for the space station originated back in the year 1984 when a union address was made by United States of America's President Donald Reagan. So this was launched in 1998. It was partnering United States of America, Russia, Japan, Canada and Europe. What do? We have the astronauts who visit the space station. They would be able to conduct number of experiments over a period of time. There would be wear and tear after a couple of years as well. They will replace so that they would be able to conduct scientific experiments in the scientific world in the space station. So they would try and understand what is the space all about, what experiments can be conducted in that particular area, and the same would be given back to Earth so that such scientific and technological developments will help all other countries in the world. So this particular International Space Station of late is going through a lot of wear and tear. Initially, when it was built, it was meant to be operated only for 15 years, but now it is being operated for about 21 years and its operations will continue to exist until 2030, which is where NASA feels that there will be a problematic area in the near future. Why? That is because the life cycle of the International Space Station has been extended. Added to it, when the International Space Station is facing the sun, it gets heated up to as much as 121 degrees centigrade. When one side is facing the sun, there is another side as well. The other side also has a darker side which also has minus 157 degrees centigrade. So there is contraction, expansion, heating continuously that happening. And because the International Space Station has also been expanded not for 15 years but for 21 years, there is a lot of wear and tear when it comes to its operations. So what is the action plan? NASA plans to remove this International Space Station from the orbit surrounding the Earth, and eventually it is planning to plunge it into the ocean, where in a Point Nemo. This Point Nemo is present over the South Pacific Oceanic uninhabited area. So what do we understand by Point Nemo? Nemo means no one in the Latin. This isolated point acts as a space symmetry where the space debris will be ultimately put in this Point Nemo. So this Point Nemo is a place where the space debris will be ultimately dumped. So the International Space Station will be removed from the low Earth orbit and will be pushed into this ocean of Point Nemo, which means there is no one in this particular area and will not have much of impact as well. So a question asked, what would happen to the environmental consequences? NASA claims the debris of ISS survives the re-entry, will settle on the ocean floor and may not cause environmental consequences on a longer term. What is the future course of action? According to NASA, it goes on to believe that there are a number of private companies. Let's say, for example, we have the Blue Origin. Blue Origin is an aerospace company which was founded by Jeff Bezos. They are already planning to come up with their own space station as well. China is also planning to come up with its own space station as well. So as of now, the idea is to decommission the International Space Station, allow the private entrepreneurs and company so that they can develop and operate the space station. But as of now, other international operators are yet to give their viewpoint to this decommission as well. Now let's look into the next practice question. R2 Code of Practices constitute a tool available for promoting the adoption of environmentally reasonable practices in the electronics recycling industry, ecological management of wetlands of international importance under the Ramsar Convention, sustainable practices in the cultivation of agricultural crops in degraded lands, environmental impact assessment in the exploitation of natural resources. The answer to this is environmentally responsible practices in electronics recycling industry. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2021. So basically R2 here stands for responsible recycling. So we have responsible, we also have recycling, which is why it is called as R2 Code of Practices. The R2 Code of Practices is basically one of those practices wherein electronics recycling industry takes place by the Sustainable Electronics Recycling International. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion happens to be Angadias. Let us try and understand who are these Angadias. What if you want to transfer, let's say 1 crore or about 50 lakhs from one state to another? What do? You would put money in your banking system and you would request the bank to send this particular money from one bank to another bank in a different state through the RTGS process or through any other means and mechanisms. When this process happens, what happens? There is a formal channel that is established. So this happens to be a formal banking channel where you request the bank to send the money from one state to another, from one branch to another. So everything is happening on a formal banking system. What if I say you there also exists something called as the unofficial banking system? So this unofficial banking system, which is not a bank actually, but people who take money from one state to another, are called as the Angadias. So who are the Angadias? Angadias are those set of people who indirectly act as courier service people. So Angadia is a Gujarati word. It also has a Hindi parlance as well, which basically means courier service. So who are the Angadias? Angadias are those type of people who run an unofficial courier cum banking service, who help in transferring funds from one place, one part of the state into another part of the state. This can be 50 lakhs, this can be 1 crore, it can be any amount. So Angadias are those type of people or the courier people who send money from one place, who carry this money from one state to another. This is predominantly seen in the state of Gujarat as well as in Maharashtra. So remember, this particular process is organized by the Gujarati community, the Marwari as well as the Malbari community. How does does this entire process work? There are three people involved in it. One is a trader who happens to be a person who wants to send a certain amount of money. Then you also have a receiver. This receiver is a person who receives this particular money, and who will take this? The person who's taking this particular money from the trader to the receiver happens to be the Angadia. So the Angadia is a person or a group of people who take money or diamonds or cash or in fact other goods from one place to another. How does this entire process work? Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, the trader wants to send diamonds or cash from this particular locality in Gujarat to a place in Maharashtra. What would happen? The Angadia would be given a 10 rupee note. This 10 rupee note will have a serial number. The trader would have communicated this serial number to the receiver who is present on the other side. So when the Angadia goes, he takes this 10 rupee note, he also takes the cash and the diamond, he ultimately travels from Gujarat to Maharashtra. Once he meets the receiver will have to tell the serial number of this 10 rupee note. So what would happen? The Angadia will give this 10 rupee note to the receiver and will also give the money that he owes from the trader to the receiver. Is this process legal? Angadia system per se is legal, but there are issues and concerns that are also associated with this particular process. Why? Because usually if you're doing these type of transactions, it can also be black money as well. It can also be unaccounted money as well. Since you're not sending it through the banking system, this may also be black money as well. Added to it, why do these people prefer these unofficial channels? That is because the banking channel may also charge more as well in comparison to what these people would be able to transfer from one place to another. But there are other issues and concerns that are also associated with the Angadias as well. How? These people are the private people. They carry a huge sum of money from one place to another. As they travel, there might also be issues of robbery as well. People might also know who are these people who are transferring the money from one place to another, and they may also engage in the activity of looting. So since individuals carry cash, robbers can keep an eye on them, and ultimately they may capture these people and take away their money as well. Added to it, there have been instances where former employees, that is these Angadias who were working for them previously, have also engaged in illegal act of robbery. Added to it, then there are police officers as well who also exhort and threaten Angadias and get money from them, because it might also be unaccounted money or black money as well. Which is why this becomes important, and you should know for the fact that there is a system where transfer of money takes place not via the banking channel but unofficially. So Angadias are these courier service providers who basically transfer cash from one place to another, carry the diamonds or jewelry from one state to another. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.